Hey everyone, Holly McCann here with Secrets to Real Estate Investing. We've got a great episode today. I have another guest from Southern California, and this gentleman just impressed me tremendously when I met him last year, and I wrote down that I just had to have him on the show, and I'm so excited to have him. His name is Thom Gilbert, and he's based out of San Diego, and he has an incredible life story as well as real estate success story. I'm so excited for him to share with you guys today. So with that, welcome to the show, Thom.
Hey, thanks, Holly. Great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you on your podcast.
Well, you have such an amazing inspirational story, and I would love for you to share that and talk about, your journey, not only through life and recovering from, as I'm kind of giving it away a little, but what happened to you, as well as in, your journey into real estate. So tell our audience what has happened to you.
Sure. Where to start? I guess I'll just start with the accident and the injury, and then I'll touch on schooling a little bit too. But so 15 and a half years ago, I just graduated college. I was 23 years old. And I moved up to Lake Tahoe, to Heavenly, to work at the ski resort there. And a couple days after, it was Christmas Eve, actually, 2001. And, it was a beautiful day, blue skies. It had just snowed like 3 feet of powder the couple days before. So we were just having a wonderful day. I was with my younger brother, who was 13 at the time. And we decided to do one more run before lunch. We'd been going through the snowboard park, going off of jumps. And granted, I'd been skiing since I was 5 and then snowboarding since I was 12. But, here at 23, I just made a bad decision. I didn't go off and look at this jump closely. And I just hit it full speed, thinking it was similar to what the jump I was going off the year before, just because it looked the same, it was made the same. But the reality is it was dug out at the bottom, and it had a big divot from people going off the left side and the right side and not going off the full face of it. And so when I hit it full speed, it just buckled my knees, threw me in the air, what I call Superman style, arms first and head first, and just flailing, and I went about 50 feet high up in the air, ended up past the decline, and just landed basically on my neck, on my shoulders. Luckily I tucked my head, so I didn't break my neck. But the impact of that, if you just figure dropping 50 feet on the back of your shoulders, the board came over my head, and my legs hit my chest so hard. I had this Altoids can in it that just got smashed with my legs. It looked like somebody took a hammer to it. And, instantly, the wind was knocked out of me. My legs were tingling, and I was in a lot of pain. I was never knocked out or anything. Ski patrol was at the top of the lift. It was right next to the chairlift. So everybody was like yelling from one chair to the next chair, "Get the ski patrol, get the ski patrol." So the ski patrol was there. Like, what I felt like was instantly assessed the situation, undid my board, took off my boots, and asked me to move my toes. And it was at that point when I realized what had really happened, and I couldn't move my feet. I had this small little twitch in my right toe, and that was it. I could not move anything else. And I just had realized at that point, what did I do to myself? Here, you think you can fly in your 20s, especially, us males, you got the whole world in front of you, and I realized really quickly, that you don't, and nothing's guaranteed. And, life can be as short as a few seconds, in front of us here. So, they got me down off the mountain, helicoptered me to Reno, to the hospital there, where, a doctor assessed the situation. They realized that I had pulverized my vertebrae at L1, and it had just busted up into pieces. Those pieces went into my spinal cord. Fortunately, it wasn't severed, and I was diagnosed with what's called an incomplete spinal cord injury. So they had to actually take my vertebrae out, my L1 vertebrae. They took out all males have an extra rib. They call it Adam's rib. And they took that out, ground them both up, cut me in half, basically about 130 staples, and went in and fused my spine with a titanium cage to T12 to L2, and put those bone fragments in there. And then it basically grew to the vertebrae above and below. The doctor who did the surgery, fortunately, had done about 300 of these, so he was very professional. But he did, basically say after, surgery went well, but, you're most likely you're not going to walk again or have kids, and you're going to need to get used to living life in a wheelchair.
Oh my gosh. So
yeah.
It was just like a huge, I mean, did you know that when you had the accident? Were you thinking this might be life-changing, or did you think, oh, I'll get better, I can recover, I'm young?
I always just was thinking to myself I was going to get better, because, they, in the sled, they took me down in a sled down the hill, because I was, towards the top of the mountain, got me down to the base at the ski resort. And then basically, my brother called my family. And so my mom showed up right before the helicopter was there. And she, she tells the story that she got there, saw this helicopter, and was like, oh, wow, somebody is really hurt, And then she goes and sees me in my jacket laying on the ground next to the helicopter, and comes over. And, I just remember telling her, it's okay, Mom, I'm going to be okay. And she was like, what did you do to yourself? And I just remember trying to be strong for her, and just telling her, I'm going to be okay. It's okay. I'll be fine. But at the same time, you're uncertain, a little bit. You have those doubts, and that's what I really learned, because you have those doubts, and everybody has doubts. It's just, how long are you going to let them stick in your head? How long are you going to let them control your actions? How long do you actually focus on those negative thoughts? Because your thoughts lie to you, is the reality.
Yes. Okay. So you're told that you'll probably be living life in a wheelchair, but you probably didn't accept that, because even though our listeners can't necessarily see what I see, but you are in a child's room. So we know the whole thing about you won't have kids did not come true.
That's right. Yeah.
You got some kids. So tell us like the rest of the story and how you overcame that.
Yeah. So I got a 6-year-old and an 11-year-old now. I mean, gosh, I had so much support after the accident, with family and friends. They put on golf tournaments. They had fundraisers for medical bills. I had a physical therapist, home health care, basically, person that we hired independently. He'd come 6 days a week and work out. And I just took all of that over the first 9 months and living at my parents' house. And then once I was able to kind of get confident enough to like, hey, I have some independence, then I moved to Oregon and went back to school, and just pursued a master's degree, where I moved up there and didn't really know anybody. I ended up talking my good friend Matt into coming up for a few months, and then he got tired of the rain and a little bit of the lifestyle, and he moved back. But I went up there not into the master's program, but just really for just to figure out who I was now, and to figure out who that person was. Because everything had changed, and all that I knew, I was just getting reminded of who I used to be when I was staying with my parents and living that life. And I just needed to go figure out who I was now, and so that's what led me up there to Oregon for about 4 years, where I met my wife, and we were blessed to have our son, because she was told she couldn't have kids either. So it was a bit of a miracle baby. Yeah. And so it's just been a major blessing. I did get into the master's program. I got a master's in fishery science, because I was taught, like we'll get into here, that to go to school, get good grades so you can go to college and get a good education and take that degree and work that degree into a good job that you can work, for 30, 40 years and get a good pension and retire and, live happily ever after, all those things our parents, and grandparents told us. And I found out really quickly after graduating the master's program and getting the good paying job, that I was going to work forever, that 8 months into that, they had to close the doors. This was a job in the Bay Area, a startup company, a algae biofuel company. And, I had to then go search for another job, which is what got me down here to Southern California, San Diego area. And then I took that job, worked that, for a while, for a few years, got promotions, got raises, got more responsibility. And then I came into that third year for the review, and I got the more responsibility. I got the pat on the back, but the raises stopped really, and they just said that we can't give you any more money. You're already, one of the top 5 people making, as far as how much your salary is here. And, unless Bill dies and Mary retires and, and someone else gets fired, you're kind of capped out. I mean, they didn't say that, but that's what was the reality of their words. Yeah. So you hit that ceiling, but the responsibility kept coming, and I still had to manage 8 or 9 people, and I still had to get there early and stay late and ask permission to coach my son's baseball teams and go to Dads and Donuts, and it was a manufacturing environment where you had to clock in, and there was 11 buzzers every day, like we were talking about,
Well, wait. So for people out there listening that might be like me and have never lived in an environment with buzzers except school. I mean, we were talking about that before we started the show. Like, it's like school. They have they had a warning bell to tell you to get back after lunch. Is that right?
Yeah. They had, you count up 11 buzzers, right? So work started at 7 o'clock, so at 6:55, there was a buzzer to let you know, hey, 5 minutes till work starts. And 7 o'clock, hey, work's starting. And then 10 o'clock for break, and then 10:10 when break's over, you only get a 10-minute break. And then 12 o'clock, for lunch. And then 12:25 for the 5-minute bell, when, hey, lunch is almost over, be ready. And then 12:30 for lunch is over, back to work. And then 2 o'clock for another break. And then 2:10 for break's over. And then 3:30 and work was over in this manufacturing environment, at least for the for the time clock 8-hour-a-day employees. For the managers and salary people, that could go on till 4:35, 6 o'clock. I've stayed at work there till 7 o'clock.
Wow.
So you'll put in long days and stuff too. So it was an environment that I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate what I learned there. I learned a lot about business and a lot about a lot of other things. And I wouldn't, pass that up. But there's only so long you can put up with all that. And it can be quite a negative environment when people are being controlled by buzzers,
Yeah, I can imagine. I've heard it said that our school system was designed to create good employees. And when you describe that, I'm like, oh, it sounds like, junior high and high school where you have buzzers and you report in and warning bell. I guess it's like school.
Right? Yeah.
I guess they were well trained, huh? Well, so tell us what the next, obviously you were not feeling satisfied and fulfilled. What was the next part of your journey, and how did you discover the whole real estate investing world?
Yeah, well, like I mentioned, when I realized going in for that, third year review, where things were at and what was going, and the fact that we didn't always get bonuses. We got it the first couple years, and then all of a sudden there wasn't money to give bonuses and things like that. But the expectations of everything were still there. I just started looking for something else. I started looking into real estate. I had previously, a few years before that, read a book called Be a Real Estate Millionaire by Dean Graziosi. And so it kind of planted a seed back then, and, my dad is a contractor, so I grew up around that environment, but I always wanted to work smarter and not harder. I wasn't much of a physical labor. Now, granted, I did work a lot of physical labor, especially as a boy growing up with a dad as a contractor, but I just realized that made me realize that I didn't want to do that forever, and that's part of why I went to college. But the investing side of it, the building passive income, the finding deals and making money that way was just something that interests me a lot, is working really hard to build income that then just continues to come in passively. And so that's the path that I started going on. I started seeking education and looking to surround myself with other like-minded individuals and just build a real estate portfolio while I was still working, that allowed me to eventually get the freedom to leave that job.
So did you start up the real estate investing activities while you had your job?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And how did you do that? Like, were you trying to do that during the day with your job on those little 10-minute breaks and things, or what did you do with that?
So, I mean, here's what I did. I got up a little earlier, I ate my lunch at those 10-minute breaks. And then at lunchtime, that 30 minutes, I'd make phone calls. I'd go into my car and make phone calls, and I'd have a list, from working in the morning for an hour. I would make a list of stuff I wanted to get done for the day. And, a good friend of mine, Joe, always said, you try to just do one thing every day, because after 100 days, you've done 100 things, And so I just kept that in mind, really, that like, just as long as you're progressing, and taking steps, then you're moving in the right direction. And whether you're, the tortoise or the hare, you're still going to get to the finish line, right? And I think so many people get caught up in, I need this now, and they're playing, trying to play the short game of how quickly this can happen and quick money. And that's not really, you need to build it and be patient and focused and play that long game. And that's really what I was doing, and took advantage of the W-2 job, and that I could get bank refinancing with good credit. And so we did a lot of cash out refis, used home equity lines of credit, and just recycled that as we did cash out refis with banks then, and leveraged and just recycled money into multiple properties that way while I had my job, to build that passive income and confidence too, knowing how to find the deals and how to be able to use that to provide income and essentially freedom and time back,
Yeah, and I remember you telling me, so your focus is the Central Valley in California. So it's not in your backyard. I mean, how far of a drive is it from where you live near San Diego up to your focus area? How many hours?
It's anywhere from 5 to 6, if you're not stopping and you're gassed up, and then your bladder's not full, right?
So would you drive back and forth checking out deals, or did you have somebody there helping you, or what?
I would go, well, both. I would go on the weekends, probably about once a month, basically, and go. So I would do all the marketing. I would, find leads, and then I would go up and walk through those houses and put in those offers and things like that directly with sellers, or there was more inventory on the MLS at that time too, so making a lot of MLS offers, and that was it. I had the desire and the want, to get to where I'm at now, where I have the time and freedom to create my own schedule,
and would you did you start out wholesaling, holding, flipping? What did you start out doing, and what did you do over the course of have you had maybe like about 6-8 years experience doing this now, or?
It's been 5 years since I started. Yeah. And I started working towards buy and holds, is what I really started with. So I did some seller financing, buy and holds. Like I mentioned, we did the home equity line of credit strategy with the cash out refi. We did that, held rental properties. Also then, would hold some of those for a couple years, realize that, hey, these returns aren't quite what we're wanting, or, hey, that neighborhood's not quite as good. So then we'd sell those. And since we bought them right, and we were fortunate with the timing of appreciation, there's definitely good returns on those. Some we sold, with large down payments. And then we basically carried the profit seller financing at 10 or 12% interest.
Nice.
And just kind of spread it out that way, but I have done some fix and flips, have done some wholesales also, have created notes. But a majority, I'd say, at least about half have been buy and holds. Whether we still had held them or not is a little different, but that was the main strategy really for that passive income. But you learn at the same time about managing property managers and about tenants and tenant screening. And, you know, we had the fortunate circumstance to go through a couple evictions and you know, so there's the learning curves and the ups and downs. And that's what was helpful of having that job, is you just don't have the pressure. It's more motivation and less pressure and stress, you know. Yeah, there's still some of that, but you know that, hey, I still have my job and I still have an income to support us while I figure this out, you know.
Right, right. So what would you say, how did the whole transition work when you quit your job? Like, what did you have to do, or what did you have to be before you said, okay, now I can quit my job? And then were you like super confident? Were you terrified? Like, take us through some of that.
Yeah, so I mean, the goal was always for 3 years was the plan, you know. I held on for an extra year because of trying to do these cash out refis, you know, but I went through, probably called like 60 banks, went through the process with like 4 or 5 of them over 15 months to try to refinance these last couple properties to get the home equity line of credit money back. And just, you know, we had too much leverage at that point, too much debt to income. And so we just kept finding out, basically, you know, for different reasons. They wouldn't all say that. Some would say, well, the properties are not in our area and things like that. But we just couldn't refinance them. So I spent about a year, 15 months of frustration, which unfortunately probably came out at the job a little bit, and I was a little less motivated and stuff. But just coming into that, I just came to a point where it's like, okay, well, it's time to jump. If we have to, we'll sell those properties that we didn't refinance, and, you know, and take the profit from them, and I'll use that and just work with it. You know,
Yeah.
I was just at a point where it wasn't doing the company I was working for any good to stay there, you know, because I was just getting frustrated. I kind of felt like not the whole time, but the couple of years there, the last couple of years, almost like a double agent, you know, because you're at your job, but yet, man, all I'm thinking about is real estate and freedom and building my own business, you know, and working towards that. And at the same time, I wasn't, you know, trying to drop the ball at work or anything. I still had lots of responsibility in managing, you know, 7 or 8 people, and making sure that they had what they needed. But I just wasn't staying till 5, 6, 7 o'clock anymore. You know, when that 3:30 buzzer came and the guys I managed were leaving, I wasn't far behind them, you know, especially
Right.
when I was going to be coaching my son's little league team.
Yeah, well, tell us about that, like how your life looks now, because you mentioned that, you know, the time freedom and how wonderful that is, and how it's kind of not your goal to build a big machine with more employees to manage, but just to be able to enjoy life with your kids, huh?
Yeah, well, and that's come from the perspective of my accident, you know, and realizing how blessed we are with life and how precious it is and how short it can be. You know, I didn't want to have to ask permission to hang out with my kids anymore. You know, my good friend Chad Bartlett had said that several times, and it really stuck, you know, because he was in a similar situation as a mechanic and has worked to build a great wholesaling and fix and flip business. And it stuck with me some years back, and my wife, and it was like, yeah, you know, we don't want to have to ask permission, you know. So now I like this morning, I rode my bike, you know, with my 2 kids to school and dropped them off. And then we go, you know, and I ride bikes at the end of the day to pick them up. My wife and I usually trade off, you know, but usually 2 to 3, maybe 4 times a week, you know, I'm riding bikes with the kids to school. And, you know, they set goals this year to have these they have this run club. So, you know, they reached 100 and 150 miles this year running in run club. So we get to go to like the morning meetings when they get recognized and stuff, or dads and donuts, or like eat lunch with special persons day. You know, we can go grab some In-N-Out and bring it to them, and just be there, you know, and be there for that stuff, and coach my son's little league team, and just be a part of that, you know, to help out. I just see, and I was one of them, you know, so many parents that just are stressed, you know, and then I was stressed too. And you come home and it's like you spend all day trying not to get frustrated at work and just compose yourself. And then you come home, and who do you get frustrated with, right? The people you love. And it's just like, what kind of a life is that, you know?
Yeah.
all for a paycheck. It's like, that's not what life's about. So
Yeah.
I've taken real estate to get my time back, and what I call more of, I guess, a lifestyle real estate investor, entrepreneur, just to have my time so that I can go do what I want. If I want to go visit my parents who live in Northern California, we can go and do that. We're talking about a year, 15 months from now, taking the kids out of school, getting an RV and going across country for a year, when they're in 7th grade and 2nd grade. And it's like, only real estate can allow to do that. So it's just having that time to basically create memories with people that you love, and spend that time. And that's where I'm coming from. And that's what real estate's all about to me. I mean, I love it too, because I just enjoy it, finding the deal, negotiating, helping somebody out of a problem that they have, a problem property, or a problem situation with money, and then turning it into something beautiful, or giving someone, a place to rent and live. I enjoy that part. And so it's not like I'm ever going to stop.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, I'm not going to create this super machine, where I got to manage a ton of people.
Then you're right back to where you started, without the freedom.
Yeah, exactly. And where is that? Maybe when both my kids are 18 and they're ready, to build a business, or we could grow this thing bigger together or something, but until that, I want to be able to be available for them, and be available for my parents and my wife's parents as they, need us as they get older, to go and visit, and just build a relationship of our kids and their grandparents too,
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit of numbers, because I think you've had some great success, and I love inspiring our listeners and giving them the faith and belief that they can do this. I mean, come on, you had a degree in fishery. How does that have anything to do with real estate, right? That you could, make this work and make this happen. So why don't you tell us about, like maybe a great deal you did, and then maybe one where it didn't go so well, that maybe the value was more in the learning than the money you made.
Yeah. Let's see. So, I mean, some good deals have been some of the buy and holds, because appreciation's gone up so much, and we bought them at a real low level. But let's see. So one that I bought a few years ago, I bought it for, it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, or 2-bath. I'm sorry. Bought it for about 75,000, put about 15,000 into it. So all in it for 90, rented out for, I think it was 975.
Good numbers.
It was an 1,800 square foot house, and it appraised for 180,000. We did a cash out refi for 140,000. So we got the 90,000 back plus an extra 50, then used that money to go buy 2 more properties. So used the money to do a flip property in Florida with some friends of ours. Ended up making, as we split the profit there, we financed it, and they managed it. So we ended up each getting, I think it was about $10,000 each on the flip. And so we got the money working there. And then I bought another little rental unit with the rest of it for $62,000, rented that out for about $750 for a couple years, and then just sold that for $100,000. So, just getting that money working. And in the meantime, the property that we refied, it stopped cash flowing because we refied it a little too hard, because I knew, what we wanted to do with the money, and then I could get that 140 working and making a better return. So it was negative cash flow of $100, but we paid that, for 15 months while we worked this money, and it made a huge return. So, I mean, that was a super good home run there, that worked out well. And then we just sold that property, and for, I think it was about 170. And so we paid the loan off and still got a little more money out of that. But the beauty of the cash out refi, especially if you can get that extra money, is that that's all tax-free money, because it's loan money, until you actually, sell the property and pay it off. But that's workable, usable money that you can do. So, refinancing on properties is a great way, especially if you can get them cheap enough to get extra money that's tax-free and then usable.
I
So that was,
love that. You've had
yeah,
huge success. That is awesome. And it's also interesting to me, like, you're doing this kind of remotely. You must have a local property manager there in the town where you're doing this, right? I mean,
right.
what's kind of some of the advice you would give to someone? I mean, because it really is hard. I mean, the area I live in, Orange County, California, buying rentals makes no sense from a return on investment perspective. Like maybe you'll get, but you will get appreciation over the long term, but cash flow, forget it. You can't begin to make it work.
Right.
So we have to go outside of our, immediate neighborhood to make sense of rentals. But what's some advice you give someone who is doing it, not in their backyard because there is no great opportunities right nearby?
Right. So advice for somebody to get out of their backyard. I mean, you got to have that team, like you mentioned, you got to have some people there. So yeah, I mean, I called originally every property manager in the town that would buy the properties, just to qualify them, and had the same list of questions. We had about 10 or 15 questions that we asked them all, and see who had the best answers, and then it came down to 2 of them. And so we actually said, okay, well, let's use both of these and see, see who comes out victorious at the end. And after a year, probably not even a year. I mean, after a few months or so, it became more obvious which one was better. And so we sold, we basically ended up selling some of the properties from the other property manager, and then, let the one good property manager that was worked out well just kind of do everything, and you still have to manage them, right? I mean, they're doing the best they can. They mostly have property management to serve their clients who are buy and hold clients. There's a lot from the Bay Area that buy in the market we're into. And so, property management isn't a big money maker for them. So they have to, watch how many resources they put towards that and stuff too, because it's not necessarily a huge profitable business part of their business. They still are real estate agents too, and sell properties and buy properties for people. But really just don't go with the first company, call a bunch, qualify them, ask them questions, see how they, talk less and listen more. If somebody's not working out for you, move on. Don't hold on to them just because you built a relationship. If, you got to test, you got to trust but verify, right? And you got to test people, give them tests, see how they respond. Make sure if they hired you a landscaper and they let well, what day of the week is he going to be there? Is it just, don't let it be just this open-ended, flexible, he can go whenever he wants, what day is he going to go? And then check up on that and see, see if that's really happening. Keep honest people honest,
I'll even have contractors or landscapers. I'll tell them, send me a picture before and after, especially if it's a big cleanup job.
Yeah.
You send me, and then I'll pay you right away, because I'll pay them through my bank, through Chase Quick Pay or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so easy and awesome with cell phones and photos and videos now, like to use that technology.
Totally. Yeah. So, and then just having a realtor you can trust, to go and look at things, having, a handyman that's available, for little things and stuff like that as you have these rental properties, because they do manage a couple of them, just because I bought them as turnkeys from another landlord, which is another great source of properties. I mean, if there's a really good golden nugget I can pass on, is just network with landlords. They know the game, right? They've been there before, especially as you're starting up. Like, they can teach you things. They can help you understand how to accumulate properties. And then also they're willing to do seller financing, with their properties. They want to help the youngster get started because they were that youngster, right?
Yeah.
So if you build rapport with them and build a relationship, then you know what, they're going to look out for you and help you get started too, because they can relate. They were there, so there's no better source of properties in my mind than networking with landlords, because they understand the game. They're not after making a commission. And they understand seller financing and how to carry out, a note so that they make more and pay less in taxes. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, right?
Amen to that. Yes, yeah. For sure. Well, we are getting here to the end of our show, and you've just been awesome sharing all this. And I know we didn't plan this, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but would you be willing to share your list of questions that you asked the property managers? Because I think that would be really,
Sure.
not over here in the podcast, but email it to me, and I'm going to make that for our download for our audiences.
Sure.
So they can see your list of questions that worked well for you. And what great advice to try out 2 property managers at once. I love that idea, not putting all your eggs in one basket, because it's one thing to be good at sales. Like some people are very good at selling themselves, but then the performing aspect isn't always what you think and hope it will be. So it's great when you say trust but verify, like put people to the test and see if they can perform as well as they say they can. Huh?
Yeah. I'm a big person of testing that, and just giving people a little test too, just to verify if they do what they say they're going to do, because so many people say they're a person of their word, right? And then they tell you they're going to do something and then it doesn't happen. And how do you react to that, And if you put yourself out there financially, then it's even harder, So test before you actually have a financial commitment,
Right. Yeah, that's what I have with tenants all the time. Like, commit to me the days you're going to pay your rent, the ones that get behind for whatever reason. And yeah, it's always interesting to deal with them. Well,
right. Yeah.
You've been awesome, Thom. And for listeners, we are going to have Thom's questions that he asked his property managers, and he put them through his test at hardhatholly.com/54. This is episode 54, and we'll have that download available to you. Thom, if someone wants to reach out to you and ask you questions or advice, how does someone reach you?
Sure. Let's see. So, I'm easily accessible on Facebook, so you can always, reach out, friend me there. And then also email is, our business email is TLC Investment Properties. TLC Investment Props at gmail.com. And our website is tlcinvestmentproperties.com. And you guys are welcome to reach out to me in that way, in any way. So
awesome. And we'll have links to all that in our show notes too. And I'll put a link to your Facebook profile, because his name is spelled Thom, Thom Gilbert. So it's a little different. And so Thom, thank you so much. You've been awesome. And what an inspiration you are, going from a diagnosis of being told life in a wheelchair, no kids. Pretty bleak outlook, and like totally throwing that to the wind and making a fantastic life for yourself, your wife, your 2 kids, coaching Little League. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I'm like so impressed with everything you've done.
Well, thanks. No, I'm very blessed, is really what it is. And you can't let somebody else's opinion about you become your reality. And then you got to go out and be the example you want to see, you got to go out and live it. So, that's all I've tried to do. And I've just been blessed along the way, and been surrounded by a lot of wonderful people. So thanks for having me today, Holly. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. No excuses. After hearing Thom's story, you guys have no excuses. Get out there and make it happen. Thank you, Thom. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Hey there, thanks for watching the video. Make sure you like it and click subscribe to get notified of more videos. And you can go to hardhatholly.com for a free download on secrets to finding great deals.